everybody, and welcome to the very first EU Open Data Explained webinar. My name is Maria Apostolou, and I apologize that you cannot see me. My connection was not great, so I had to to switch off my camera. I work for the EU Open Data portal, and I'm very excited to have you all here and very happy to see the vivid interest in our webinar. This is a series of webinars that aims to bring together data providers on the one hand of EU institutions and data users and reusers on the other hand, students, researchers, entrepreneurs, application developers, data journalists, or other professionals, so that they can exchange, share, and better understand one another's needs and how to make the best of open data. As we can see in the next slide, our very first webinar in the series is about language resources. It was only natural that this first session would address the domain of multilingual resources because it's the domain where EU is particularly strong into. And for another reason, the important role that textual data play nowadays in language technologies and machine learning and artificial intelligence. To have a look at the structure of the webinar, today's use cases are two highly practical tools available as open data to translators, interpreters, or providers of content in multiple languages. And it's the EU-specific terminology database, IATE, and the multilingual translation memory of the EU legislation. While data providers take the floor, and they will take it soon, to show what their data has to offer, data reusers take center stage to show their specific needs and the way forward. This is what the aim of EU Open Data Explained webinars is, and to facilitate this dialogue between the supply and demand sides of EU Open Data, the webinars feature a question and answer session right after each presentation, which brings us to some housekeeping. First of all, let me tell you that this webinar is recorded and it will be uploaded on YouTube. Also, the slides will be circulated among participants. You notice that you are muted. Don't worry, it's normal. You still can interact using the chat box. And this was a choice we made not to lose time to give room for more questions. You can use the icons on the top right of your screen to change the view. The side-by-side view is the one recommended in our case. And we will do our best to address as many questions as possible during the question and answer session. But if they turn out to be too many or too technical, then we will have to address some of them, and the rest we will forward to the competent colleagues so that you might get an answer from them. And with this, I think we can move on to the first part of today's webinar. And let me welcome Paula Zorrilla-Agut and Maria Rzewuska-Waligóra, who will introduce themselves and take the floor. Ladies, good morning.
Hello, thank you very much, Maria. I hope everyone can see and hear me well.
I see you and I hear you.
Thank you. So then I start. First of all, we would like to thank the Publications Office for this opportunity to further disseminate our work and all participants for your interest and your time. My name is Paula Zorrilla-Agut and I work at the Translation Center for the Bodies of the European Union as IATE Tool Manager. Next slide, please. As you will see in the outline, in this first part of the webinar, we will present you IATE and its main search and retrieval features, including different possibilities to reuse data for internal and external users. Then my colleague, Maria Rzewuska, will describe the process behind the creation, enrichment, and maintenance of an IATE collection that has become essential this year, the COVID-19 collection. We will also briefly describe the dataset available for download in the EU Open Data Portal. We will be glad to answer your questions at the end of our interventions. Next slide, please. As you may know, IATE came to life in 2004 and was open to public users in 2007. Since then, it has become the central terminology repository of the EU institutions and bodies, and a renowned multilingual resource for language professionals, national experts, universities and researchers, private companies, and many more. IATE is financed by 10 EU institutions and bodies, and it is developed and managed by the Translation Center for the Bodies of the European Union on behalf of all the IATE partners. A full new version of IATE was released in late 2018, and we continue enriching it with new features and improvements approximately every 2 months. We invite you to consult regularly the release notes available in the footer to see what's new. As you can see on the next slide, where we have some figures, IATE receives around 250,000 queries in a normal working day from internal and external users, and its content gets updated on a daily basis by EU terminologists. IATE content can be searched and retrieved in different ways. The next slide shows the most common way to search in IATE, the standard search screen, where users can search by a term in the selected source and target languages. It also allows a search by entry ID if you know it. More search options are available in the expanded search, where it is possible to select other fields where to run the search. For example, search for a specific content in the context field or in the notes. Users can also filter by domain to limit the number of results to concepts in a particular area. The next slide shows the results page, which offers many metadata on the entries, languages, and terms. We have the star icon for primary entries, which are high-quality entries. They are always displayed on top of the results. We have the anchor icon next to a language code, which indicates that this is the reference language. That's it, the first language added to the entry. We can also see the domain or domains of the concept following the Eurovox thesaurus. The stars next to each term show their level of reliability. The evaluation label indicates if a term is obsolete, preferred, etc. And we can see whether certain fields like the definition, term reference, note, contain data for that particular entry and term and expand them. IATE results are sorted by relevancy with exact matches on top and similar results below. Higher quality data have also a higher ranking in the list. It is important to highlight that external users have access to most of the content of IATE. Only few confidential entries, non-validated data, non-official EU languages, and some internal fields are not displayed to external users. The rest of the content is fully available. Those interested can still go a step further and consult the full entry view, showing the next slide. It offers a full view of the entry with additional metadata, like cross-references to other related concepts and other fields which are not presented in the results page for economy reasons. This is also the view where terminologists do their work in IATE entries for completion and modifications. As shown in the next slide, internal users, that's it, EU staff, benefit from an advanced search feature that allows to run searches by different criteria, not necessarily by term, and export the results in tabular format, in TBX, which is the standard format for terminology exchange, or in a computer-assisted translation environment format. They can export, for example, a full domain or a collection or entries from a particular data owner and have this data available offline directly in their translation environment for easier consultation. The next slide shows another successful option to retrieve IATE data, the term recognition module, where internal users can upload a document, select their target language and preferred output format, apply filters as needed, and submit a request for an IATE retrieval of terms matching the document. Over 40,000 documents have been processed this year with this feature. In the next slide, you have an example of a term recognition request in HTML, where the user gets a copy of the document with highlighted matches and the corresponding IATE results. This output can be useful for users who do not necessarily work with CAT tools, like interpreters. A CAT tool compatible format is also available as output for translators. This feature has been recently opened to Commission's DGT external language service providers during a pilot phase to evaluate performance. We are also working on an internal plugin that will connect IATE with the CAT tool used in the EU institutions for a live term recognition without intermediate files. And which are the options available for external users? As presented in the next slide, an additional way to consult IATE data are the IATE public search APIs, application programming interfaces, that any user can use to query IATE from other applications. Details on the APIs and also the search by URL, which is an additional possibility, are available in the page IATE for developers that can be found in the IATE footer. Last but not least, and as you will see in the next slide, external users that log in IATE with an external EU login account have the possibility to request and download IATE datasets in their selected languages and domains. The available outputs are CSV and TBX3. These on-demand exports replace, since the month of June, the previous big multilingual download file that was centrally updated on a regular basis. Users can now select their wished languages and domains from the beginning and only export those. This export feature extracts the latest IATE data. We have received feedback from different users disappointed by the fact that the main CAT tools are not yet supporting the new TBX format. We are in touch with the ISO TBX steering committee, who is liaising with the industry for a prompt adoption of the new standard, so we hope to see enhanced compatibility in the very near future. In the meantime, if you are blocked, you may wish to use the CSV format as an output, which you can still convert to other formats with third-party tools. The datasets for download include very few metadata, particularly because these IATE exports can be used for commercial purposes. This is not the case for the most complete entries that you can get via the public search APIs or the search screen. We advise you to consult the legal notice and the terms and conditions of use available in the IATE site. It is important to know that IATE content is frequently organized in thematic or project collections for internal management purposes. However, the collection filter is not open to external users, neither in the standard search nor in the download feature, although we have plans to make it available soon so that users can extract thematic datasets besides the domain. My colleague Maria Rzewuska will now explain you the work behind probably the most consulted terminology in IATE this year, the COVID-19 dataset. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, Maria, we hear you.
Yes, that's excellent. It's always so difficult. Okay, so now it's my turn to introduce briefly myself. Thank you, Paula. I was so mesmerized by following the IATE presentation that I almost forgot that I have to do mine. So I'm the head of Translation Coordination Unit at the European Commission, Director General for Translation. Could you show, please, the previous slide? Yes, we'll start with this one. So I will briefly tell you about the way we deal with terminology in DG Translation, how it is organized usually, and how different it was this time for this collection for the COVID-19, so that you can imagine how well the work changed for everybody. So probably obviously for us as well. So how do we go about that in DG Translation? So usually we start with setting out some priorities, and these priorities are based on the work program of the Commission. So we adhere to what is being planned politically, because we know that the documents that will come in for translation will concern these subject fields. So that's more or less an obvious choice that we follow the production, the priorities. So once we have the priorities which are set, and they are consulted also with internally with terminologists, we decide upon what will be the collections, the projects that we are going to work on. Some projects are also defined and have to be outsourced to external experts, as we lack specific expertise when the fields are very, very specialized. So this happens as well, that we don't do all our terminology in-house. As when I say we, actually I mean the Translation Coordination Unit, but also, which is very small, but also terminologists. There are 2 per each language department, and we coordinate, we work with them all the time. I wouldn't say as a big unit, but in close cooperation. We also communicate with the other partner institutions of IATE, other institutions who also translate, as to avoid double work. Yes, next slide, please. So here we come up to the building of COVID-19 collection. So was it so much different? Let's have a look. So first of all, as in usual terminology work, we look at the source text. They were coming with very short deadlines. There were a lot of them starting this year, early this year. The terminology was unstable, so this didn't make our task very easy. So we took as source text, obviously the incoming documents produced by the Commission, but also various publications that were available on EU sites, also international organizations and scientific databases, and terms and candidate terms were also clarified with experts, such as those who work in DG Center. Once we have a pre-list, let's say a defined list of term candidates, they are checked for presence in IATE. So you will hear me talking about IATE, about the database all the time. It is really central to our work and to the work of other institutions. So first of all, the terms are checked there, then they are entered, and then the hard bit starts. It's adding the language versions to the anchor language. And this happens by terminologists in language departments. Once this is done, and they do work directly in IATE, we are sharing the content, we are reusing it. That's the magic of IATE. Everybody having a central terminology living database can at any moment check up on the progress, can see whether these terms or the others are there, they have been done. And as Paula mentioned, they are ordered and managed in thematic collections. And we can download them as term-based exports, for example. That's a very practical way of using it in DGT, and reuse these terms while doing new translations. I would like to also to mention two persons who have a very tough. They have worked in a very intense way on this collection. It's our two terminology coordinators, Nineta Kapetanaki and Rastio Popelka. So both of them are were the authors of the collection of the first anchor terms, of clarifications of many fields that are indispensable to make this collection reliable. Yes, so I will end on this magic reuse word and hand over the closing remarks to Paula. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I hope everyone can hear me and see me again.
Yes, Paula, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So as we mentioned before, since for the time being, the collection metadata is only internal and the collection filter is not available to external users, and given the high demand to follow up the COVID-19 dataset, we have extracted a list of the entry numbers and the English terms together with a link to the full IATE entry and made it available in the European Union Open Data Portal managed by the Publications Office. This static extract, which contains two collections managed by the Commission and the Council, is updated regularly, since the collections are growing constantly. So we invite all users to consult the full entries in IATE directly for the latest data and the multilingual versions. We hope this little journey around IATE and the COVID-19 dataset has been of your interest, and we will be glad to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed, Paula and Maria, for a great presentation. I can surely tell you, there are many questions. So excuse my not being technical enough. I might not be, expressing them the right way, but one that caught my eye is, so are you adding the different languages based on anchor language? So, example, English is the anchor language, then Danish is added separately and Hungarian is added separately, but they will show up when I search in between Danish, Hungarian.
For the completion of the languages, I would maybe pass the floor to Maria and our colleague Anna Fotos, who is also there available to answer questions because they work mostly with the content.
Hello. Yes. Actually, most of the terms they come in English because they're taken out from English source texts. So the anchor language is English. But then, yes, terminologists add their terms in their own languages when they're well researched with all the relevant fields. And as far as I know, yes, the searches will show whatever pair of languages you are looking for, provided it is there.
Thank you, Maria. Let's move to the next question. Here I see a question, but in the same field I see there is also a kind of a remark. So Julia wants to know, she thanks for the very interesting presentation, and she says, you mentioned that the new TBX3 is not working with some CAD tools. May you explain what a possible reason could be? But I see that earlier on, Manuel had more of a comment on this subject than a question, saying if their CAD tools don't handle TBX, translators should write to their CAD tool manufacturer about that and not the EU's translation center. So what would your answer be?
Yes, thank you for the question. I can say that when we were updating this feature and moving from the big download file to the on-demand exports, we were in close touch with the ISO TBX steering committee, who was very willing to have the new adopted version of the standard in place. And of course, we always try to be up to date with the latest standards and technologies. So it was only natural that we adopted the TBX3 standard. Then we realized that not all CAD tools vendors were compliant with the new version of the standard because it contains structural changes in the TBX file and it's not recognized in their patterns to import those files. But as the colleague mentioned, it is more up to the industry to adapt than to us. We have tried to follow the latest standard. What we are trying is to facilitate exchanges and together with the ISO TBX steering committee, being in touch with the industry to reinforce the idea that they should adopt the latest version. And we hope that because of the high demand of the IATE exports, they will react quickly and will allow users to use this latest version that we are offering. I hope this answers the question, even if the situation, I know it's still a work in progress.
Thank you for your reply and for reminding us that we all have to, operate under limitations. I see another cluster, let's say, of questions that are related to internal, external users and benefits. Agnieszka would like to know if an external user can contribute to IATE, or I have another question, whether external users benefit for more features if they log into IATE. Could you please explain a bit how that works?
Yes, sure. So for the contributions, we have always welcomed contributions from external users. Of course, they cannot contribute directly in the database because they don't have editing rights, but they can contribute by sending suggestions for corrections, for enrichment, for new concepts that are not yet available in the database. And they can send these suggestions to the IATE mailbox, which users can find directly on the IATE site. And I think it will be displayed as well at the end of our presentation. So we will have the mailbox, the central mailbox, where you can send further questions and contributions. We do regularly get corrections, suggestions for corrections from users, and they are dispatched to the specific data owners for correction, and there is a follow-up then with the user. So we try to make sure that the users' feedback is taken on board and that there is a follow-up with the contributors. Regarding the additional features that external users could benefit from if they log into IATE with an external EU login account, I would say the most important one is the IATE downloads. So if you log into IATE, you can request this on-demand IATE downloads. But we are also little by little offering more things. Recently, we included as well user preferences, so you can save your most commonly used source and target language. You can save as well in your profile your preferred matching option, which by default is all words, but maybe you preferred having exact match. And we are going to expand these user preferences over time and probably include additional filters that will be available especially as a starting point of view to evaluate performance to logged users. So yes, you do have more features available, and this will also evolve. Every time we include new features for external users, and particularly if they are for logged external users, we mention it explicitly in the release notes. So if you follow regularly the release notes, you can see whether new things have been added, and whether it's worth for you to create this this EU login account. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula, for a very comprehensive reply. Theodora wants to know, I have seen there are also non-EU languages available for the term search. How do you choose which non-EU languages to add?
Non-EU languages are available in IATE, but only for internal use, because we do not have necessarily the resources to ensure the quality of this data. So we do have recruited resources, translators, linguists, interpreters that have been recruited to work in a specific official EU language. But this is not the case for non-official EU languages. So sometimes, because of specific traineeships, specific cooperations with non-EU countries, with maybe external partners, we do have data in IATE in non-official languages, but it's not always easy to maintain and make sure the quality of this data is ready to be released outside, and it's only open for internal use, but not for external users.
And maybe another question, how long does it take to rectify a huge translation error? And how reliable, let's say, are the stars that are attributed to the translations? This is a question from Raluca, and yes.
I could maybe address this to my colleagues Maria and Anna, who are dealing with the content and will be able to answer more precisely about quality and updates.
Anna, could you take that, please?
Yes, sure. So as soon as we are alerted about the problem, we will start to investigate whether this is a simple correction that can be done in the database, or whether it has consequences to all the legislation that contains this term. So it takes quite a long time to correct a mistake if there is a legislation to be corrected, because there are several actors who have to cooperate together, the lawyer linguists, other linguists, and then the publications office. So it will take quite a long time before it's corrected. But we need to be alerted first that there is a problem like that. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much. I think maybe another one. We have so many questions, really. We won't be able to take them all. But let's try another one. This is an interesting one, at least from data perspective. Can you elaborate? Giuseppe asks on the elements within entries that give information on a term's conceptual relationship with other terms.
The IATE database offers the possibility to create cross-references. And in the full entry view slide, you have an example that you can consult again later. And these are also open to external users, so you will be able to see these cross-references across concepts. We also have another mechanism, which is the IATE entry-to-entry links. We call it like that, and it's within the language section, within the term section. So in a context field, in a definition field, in a reference field, we may have as well a reference to another concept that is mentioned in that context, in that note, in that definition, by writing the IATE ID that it's related. For the entry-to-entry links, we are not establishing any type of relation. However, for the cross-references that we have at entry level, there we have the possibility to say to which entry we want to link, and also which type of relation we want to establish. In the new version of the system, we have expanded this list of cross-references. Before, in the previous version of IATE, it was relatively limited, but now it's a long list of cross-reference relation types, which allows a very precise definition of the relationship between different concepts. So we have the most common ones can be broader than, narrower than, related to, antonym of, but we also have its predecessor of, its successor of, and many other, its capital of, its city of. So we have different relationships, which are aligned as well with the interinstitutional style guide, where you can find as well plenty of these conceptual relationships. So we are trying to align with what is used in other EU resources.
Paula, I hate to intervene, but there are so many questions and there's so little time. So thank you very much, all three ladies, for giving us your replies. And please expect a flow of questions to arrive in your functional mailboxes as we will move forward to the next part of today's webinar. And this would be the translation memory of the European legislation by DGT. And I'm happy to present Patrick Schlüter, who will take now the floor. Patrick.
Hello. My name is Patrick Schlüter. I'm from the European Commission and I work for the General Direction for Translation as a language tool developer. And I will present you DGT-TM, a publicly available translation memory dataset. Next, let me present you with the outline of the presentation. I'll start by explaining what a translation memory is. Then I will evoke the history of DGT-TM specifically. After that, I'll present some application and use cases. During the presentation, don't hesitate to ask questions via the chat during the session. We will then try to answer them during the Q&A session after the presentation. Slide, please. TM, translation memory, is a collection of translated texts that are structured for easy reuse by the translator. The text is cut in segments, sentences and part of sentences from the source text and aligned with the matching translation segments. DGT-TM is assembled using EU legislation translated in all official languages of the EU. They cover official journal legislative publications from 2004 up until now. It allows the translator to be more productive by reusing already translated text, enabling the reuse of standardized language and terminology. It helps also by automating simple replacement like dates and numbers. Next, please. The history of DGT-TM. The first publication of the DGT-TM was in 2007, using the data from the Acquis Communautaire, which is the set of founding legislation and treaties of the European Union. The data was mainly manually aligned and extracted and covers documents from the EU up until 2006. After the success of this publication, it was decided in 2011 to put in place a more permanent service. DGT-TM is since then the publication of the official journal legislative documents in the form of a translation memory in a yearly schedule. As the source documents are pre-aligned at the publication office, the process of segment alignment can be made automatically in a near-perfect quality. Next, please. The data of the DGT-TM is extracted from the umbrella project EURAMIS. EURAMIS is the central translation memory project operated by the Commission for all institutions. It is at the heart of the document production workflow of the Union. It is probably the biggest translation memory in the world, as it grew to a staggering size of 1.5 billion segments in 28 languages over the 25 years of its existence, and serves also as data source for other projects like e-translation. Next slide. Yeah. At the inception of the DGT-TM project in 2011, it was accompanied with the publication of a peer-reviewed paper presenting the data and some statistical analysis of the data set, and it was presented at the LREC 12. Next page. An ISLRN number was also assigned to the DGT-TM in 2014. This guarantees that the project is unique and makes it also more visible for the research community. This allows that this corpus is better reused for other projects. Next page, please. As of today, the DGT consists of around 80 zip archives of sizes varying from 100 to 250 megabytes. Each year we add around 2 or 3 files, depending on the document production of the institutions. The zip archives contains the multiple alignments in the form of separate files identified by their Eurolex number. The format of the file is the well-known XML-based translation memory exchange format, also known as TMX file. Here you can see an example of an alignment in this TMX format. That format is not useful for the translator directly. It will be incorporated in the CAT tool and will then be used by the CAT tool for inserting it in the document. Next page, please. Another example of an application is DGT-UD, which is an application for universal dependencies, which is a framework for consistent annotation of grammar, part of speech, morphological feature, and syntactic dependencies across different human languages. Next. The strengths of the DGT-TM are it's one of the biggest parallel corpora available to the public. It is freely available for commercial and non-commercial use. It is useful for supporting human translators, but also for training machine translation system and other natural language processing systems. One of the limitations of that corpus is it is limited to EU legislation, which has a specific linguistic style that is not necessarily adapted to conversational text or journalistic style. Next. User group. DGT-TM is used in the research community as a basis for computational linguistics, mostly as a training corpus for statistical and neural natural language processing tools like machine translation engines, dictionaries, and ontologies. The DGT-TM corpus is also used by all big translation services like Google, Microsoft, Yandex, and it provides consequent amount of high-quality parallel text in smaller languages like Maltese, Irish, or the Baltic languages. Freelance translators benefit hugely from DGT-TM, especially if they work for the institutions and national administrations. Next. The extraction tools to fit the user needs. Translators generally work only from one language to another. As the data in the DGT-TM is aligned over multiple languages, it is helpful for the translator to be able to extract only one language pair from the corpus. We provided a tool to do that. It allows to extract any of the 552 language combinations that can be generated with the data. Next. As a technical contact person for the DGT-TM corpus, I get regular requests that can be split into mainly four subjects. I get questions about the hosting of the data, like release dates, broken links, and where the files can be found, and things about the websites. Then I get sometimes inquiries about the legal status of the data, of the reuse of the data, if people can provide services or things like that. I also get questions about the extraction tool, because it's a Java application. It's not always simple to install on other operating systems than Windows. So I got technical questions about that. I also get requests for people to find specific documents where they can be found in which volume of what zip files. This has prompted us to create, in fact, an inventory file that will be published soon alongside with the yearly updates, so that translators can find these documents more quickly. Next, please. DGT-TM was long time the most consulted dataset of the Open Data Portal, and is still in the top 4 datasets in number of consultations. The Open Data Portal links to the data that is hosted at the GSC, the Joint Research Center of the EU, which is in Ispra in Italy. The addresses can be the dataset can be downloaded at the links that are here presented in the slide. Thank you. For further question, you may send me an email at my European Commission address shown here on the slide.
Thank you, Patrick, for the presentation, for your availability. Let's have a look at the questions we have received so far. Timea asks, do you plan to make the Euramis Concordance search tool publicly available?
As far as I know, it's not the plan, but maybe Dirk
yes,
know more about it.
I can maybe reply on that. Yes, I'm Dirk de Pape. I'm the project manager of Euramis. I'm working with Patrick, who did this presentation. So indeed, currently we have no plan to make the Euramis concordance search tool publicly available. The main purpose, the main reason is the same one than why Euramis is not publicly available is because the data that is in Euramis is not public, so we cannot open it for for everybody for the moment. Also, having such a tool available for the public requires, of course, a huge investment, but there is no plan for that for the moment.
Thank you, Dirk, for also highlighting an important aspect of EU open data. They have to be public to be opened up. There are legal considerations to take into account. Let's move to another question. Is all the data included in the DGT translation memory of the same quality?
The quality of the data is it depends on which DGT-TM publication we are talking about. The first publication in 2007 was manually aligned data from translation coming from the DGT. So the quality of the translation itself is not a problem. It's high professional translated text. But the data that was published in 2007 was manually aligned. And the data after 2007, from 2011 on, is automatically aligned. But as the data comes directly from the publication office, where the data has been pre-aligned paragraph-wise, the quality of the alignment is exactly like nearly like human alignment. As for the translation itself, as I said, it's data translated by the professional translators of the European Union, and the quality of that data is known. Dirk has something to say about it.
Dirk, please, if there is something.
Yes, I can mention that this is the same data that is used inside Euramis for our internal tool. So that's the same level of quality that we publish. So, and our translators are using that on a daily basis, and they are happy with it. Yeah, that's
Thank you for your reply. We have another more technical question. Agnieszka would like to know, what do you mean by segments and alignments?
So a segment is in fact a sentence or part of a sentence, and an alignment is a set of segments that are in form of the source sentence and their translation. So if you have a text written in French, you will have the translation, and the alignment will be the segments that corresponds to this translation, to this text. So it is a group of sentences, segments, sorry.
Another more or less technical question. I think it has already been replied to by a participant, but nevertheless, I will address it to you. What is the difference between a corpus and a translation memory?
A corpus is, if you want just the data, the translation memory is there's not much difference. In fact, they are both synonymous. In fact,
Manuel says that the translation memory is a bilingual document containing translations. A corpus is a collection of documents. So I guess it's a wider term for a corpus. The corpus is a wider.
Yeah, corpus is not specifically translation memory, but the translation memory is a corpus, if you want. You can have
let's say that in a translation memory, the corpus has been processed in a way that is it makes it more easy to for the IT tools to extract the translations and equivalences between translations for tools like retrievals with algorithms that look for match rates to similar translations. So it's a specific corpus, yes.
Yeah, the corpus is more generic yes. Collection of text, and the translation memory is a collection of alignments of segments that are aligned with the translation.
We have another question. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, okay. We have another question from David. He says, I remember that at least some time ago there was a corpus of European Parliament documents. Is it still available? And if yes, is there any specific tool to extract its bilingual segments?
There is still all the available translation memories are still hosted on JSC page, so they would have to consult the JSC page to see the different tools and corpus and corpora that are available there. As said, we at the DGT only are responsible for the DGT, specifically for the DGT-TM. So I cannot give more information about the Parliament data.
Okay.
So they will have to consult the GSC page for more details.
Katja asks what kind of metadata is made available for the DGT translation memory segments. Is there, for example, any info on the origin of the translation, e.g. internal translation or external translation?
No, there's no metadata, except for the URLX reference from which document the segment originates. That's the only metadata that is present in DGT-TM. It was limited to that because of at the time when the first DGT-TM was published in 2007, it was not known what legally what we could publish as information, and then for compatibility reasons we kept that that format as it was.
Okay, and a question that it's not strictly related to the multilingual resources, but multilingual resources, but since it was mentioned in your presentation, what exactly is the acquis communautaire?
The acquis communautaire is it's all the treaties and basis legislation that were used to form the European Union. In fact, it contains all the treaties from the CGCA, from the European market, and stuff like that. All the basis legislation of the
legislative basis of the European Union itself, let's say. Okay, thank you very much, both you, Patrick and Dirk, for your replies to our audience. And with this, we conclude the presentations and questions and answers of today's webinar. I hope you enjoyed this first part of our journey to the EU's multilingual resources, because there will for sure be a second one, as well as other topics always from a practical perspective. Thank you, presenters, for your time and the expertise you shared with us. Thank you all colleagues behind the scenes who made this possible, but most of all, thank to all participants, because your presence is essential in what we are trying to do. Please help us help people make the best out of data. Ask for it, demand for more openness and better quality. We talk a lot about data-driven or demand-driven approaches. The only thing that drives really is humans. So this is what we need. I hope you may also take a lesson from the power of LOD, and I invite my colleagues please to post once again the link to the LOD, the ballad of LOD, this power ballad of a little girl who discovers the power to transform the world. I ask you please to become the advocates and the ambassadors of all levels, from EU to national, regional and local, to make a difference. May the power of LOD be with you, and have a great day.